All right then, let's have a look at how to play Turn to Stone by one Mr. Joe Walsh from 1974. We are in standard tuning for this tutorial. This one starts like this, with this opening riff. Right, 3 chords, D minor, 4 middle strings, C major, B flat major, right? So we're going to strike this D minor twice on the downstroke, 4 middle strings. You really want to play a D minor chord here, not a bar chord or not a 3-finger power chord, because you really want to hear that minor third there on the 6th of the B string, right? Then you're going to back it up to a C major bar chord, hit that twice, and then slide it back 2 spots to B flat. Right? And then you're basically just going to reverse it back to D minor. Little slide from 3 into 5 of the A string to drop into that D minor. Kind of like that, right? And then you're going to repeat it, but it's going to change a little bit. The second time, you're going to hit that C 4 times before sliding it back to B flat and hitting it twice. And we finish with this. So we're going to strike that B flat 2 more times. Then you're going to grab this E note here at the 2nd fret of the D string along with that 1 of the A. Get this kind of dissonant chord, right? Strike that twice. And then drop into a D power chord to finish. And that's the opening riff. D minor off to C major, off to B flat. And then reverse. And then again, 4 times on the C. Off to B flat, and then finish with that E note right there into D, right? Now that's going to repeat, and over top is the intro solo. Right there. So we're starting with a unison bend, D minor pentatonic for the most part. We do grab that note there, that E note out of the minor scale, but it's predominantly minor pentatonic work here. Starting with a unison bend, 10 of the high E, 13 of the B, 2 quick bends, and then you're going to release it back to the natural note at 13 along with that 10 of the high E, and then 2 more unison bends, but a little bit slower. Leave that final one up there and then repeat. But the second time, coming off that final bend on the 13, you're going to drop onto 12 of the G into a full step bend. Right? Into this. So 13 of the B, full step bend, release off to 10. Into a full step bend on the 13 of the high E. And now we're going to pick that at the top, release it off to 12 and then off to 10. Right into another bend on that 13 of the B and finish with this. So we're going to release that 13 back to the natural note off to 10. Grab that 12 of the G into a full step bend. Grab the 13 of the B with your pinky and then release that bend off to 10. Finish on the 12 of the D with a double hit. Kind of like that, right? And that is the intro solo. And just before the first verse starts, I'm going to grab a little triad here, F major triad on the 10s of the D, G, and B, just a bar, right? Slide out of it, and then we drop into the first verse. Just a F 3-finger power chord, basically, right? Slide out of it after hitting it like 4 times. And then right back into it, hit it 3 times, and repeat twice. Then off to D, little down, up, down, let it ring, play this lick, and then drop right back into D again. So 5 of the low E off to 3 of the A twice, slide that 3 into 5, and then strike the D 3-finger power chord again. Da, da, na, na, na. And then we drop into the second half of the first verse. However, that is one guitar. There's 2 or 3 guitars going on here. One of them is playing slide and playing this. When the one guitar drops into D and plays that, over top is slide. Right, 2 middle strings, 5s and 7s. Finishing on the 5, and it kind of slides out, right? The slide does. These are the notes, right? I'm not getting my slide out for this, but those are the notes. If you have a slide, those are the notes to play. Right? Now, Joe live doesn't usually use a slide for this track. He will combine the 2 things into one, kind of like this. Verse, right? Like that, using double stops, right? So he'll drop into D like a D bar chord and then catch all these double stops on the upstroke, right? Maybe even slide that 5 into 7. And then just finish on a double stop on the 5s of the 2 middle strings, right? Into the second half of the verse, back into F. However, at the very end of the verse, at the end of the second half, he's going to come off that F into a quick G, right? Right there, just moving that F up 2 spots. And then back to D. Into the pre-chorus, off to F at the neck position for 2 bars, kind of palm muted. Slide it into G for 2 bars. And then into a lightly strummed D minor again, which you're just going to let ring for about 2 bars. So that's the pre-chorus, F major, or just a 3-finger F power chord, right? Slide it in, into G, and then a lightly strummed D minor. And then we're back into the main riff again, and the second solo, which starts the same as the first solo. Right, but it finishes differently. It finishes like this. Right there. So coming off of those unison bends, and that bend on the 12, we drop into this. So we're grabbing the 13 of the B, down to 10 of the high E, back to 13, off to 10 of the B, into a full step bend on the 12 of the G. Then you're going to drop your pinky on the 13 of the high E, and then release that bend on the 12 of the G off to 10, and repeat twice. Kind of like that, right? And then we finish with that after repeating that lick twice. Now coming off that 10, the second time we're going to drop onto the 12 of the D, roll it down to the 12 of the G, and then back off to 10 of the G with 2 quick little bends with your index. And then release it back to the natural note. So that's the second solo. Again, grab that little triad there, that little F major triad, slide out of it. Into the next verse, which is pretty much the same as the first verse. F, right? Then off to D. Back to F. Up to G. Off to F at the neck. Into G. At this point, he grabs, coming off that G, he grabs a C note here at the 3rd fret of the A and then slides it into D, right? And then lightly strums the D minor, which leads into the main guitar solo. Now the main guitar solo to this one, it's 2 separate guitars. It starts with slide, and then he plays the first half of the solo without the slide, drops back into slide again, and I think he's using open tuning for the slide. So I'm gonna just not bother with the slide here. I'm gonna show you how it's played, right, without a slide, and these are the notes if you wanna use a slide, right? So let's have a look at the main solo to this one. Let's play through it first, and then we'll dig into how to play it. That is the main solo to this one. So like I said, it starts with slide, but we're just going to slide into that triad again, that F major triad on the 10s, right? Strum it like 4 times. Then you're going to grab the 12 of the G, little full step bend release off the 10, back to 12 into 14. And then slide it into 14 and grab the 13 of the B along with that, right? So with a slide, it would be that, right? Not a bend. Just 14, 12, 10, and then 12 into 14. And right, see, this is where it would be probably in open tuning, because you can't get those 2 notes ringing together with a slide if you're not in open tuning, right? So that's why we're not going to look at both parts, because they're both in different tunings. So what I would do is this. Just a little bend to that 12 right off the 10. Slide it into 14 and then grab the 13 of the B. Back to that little triad. And that finishes the slide section. So again, that would be the slide, but without the slide, just a little bend to that 12 off to 10 twice. Right? Then into this lick. Same lick twice, right? Just bending that 12, riding down the 10s of the B and the high E, then back to the B, into a full step bend on that 13, and repeat twice. Into this. So just a little bar here on the 10s, and then we're going to do little pull-offs from 13 off to 10 of the high E, and then 12 off to 10 of the high E, pedaling back to that 10 of the B. And then finish with a full step bend on that 13. Finishing the first half of the solo with this. Just going right up the scale, adding in that minor note right there on the 12 of the high E. Finishing on the 12 of the G, right? That's the first half of the solo. Right, now more slide, but we're not going to play slide. That's the first lick. So we're going to bend kind of a double stop bend here. 12 of the G and the 13 of the B. Going to hit that like 6 or 7 times, right? And then release it off to 10. 12 into 14, and grab that 13 again like we did earlier, right? Back to that double stop bend. Do kind of the same thing 6 or 7 times, right? And finish with that double hit on the 10 of the D, hammer on to 12, and then down to 10 of the G. Into this. So 15 of the B string, step and a half bend. Pick it about 7 or 8 times at the top, and then release it off to 13 and pick that 2 or 3 times. And then finishing with this. Just a little scale run, starting with a full step bend release on the 13 of the high E, and then right up the scale, adding in that E note. And when you get to the A string, you're going to go chromatically 12, 11, 10, off to 8, right? And that's the end of the solo. Whole thing put together. And then the rhythm drops into the pre-chorus, F at the neck position, into G, into D minor. And you're just going to let that ring, and we're going to double up the chorus at this point. So we're going to hang in this D minor, but we're going to arpeggiate notes out of it. Kind of like that, right? So we're in this D minor, we're going to hammer into it from the 5 of the B into the 6, and then just ride up the strings, and then back to the B and the G, then off to the bar, with that kind of rhythm, right? So you're going to go from the B string up to the D string, and then ride down and back up the strings. Kind of like that, and then just back into the D minor again, right? And then we're back into the main riff again for one repeat. Right, and then we're into the outro solo. So, all right, let's have a look at this outro solo. It starts off a little something like this. Repeat. Right, so we're starting on the 7 of the D string, we're going to go down to 5 of the G, back and forth twice, and then on to 7 of the G. And then we're going to take that 7 of the G, go into a step and a half bend, pick it 7 or 8 times at the top, and then release it back off to 5 with a double hit, kind of like this. Right, and then you're going to hit that 5 again, back onto 7, go back into another step and a half bend, and the second time you're only going to pick it 4 or 5 times before going back off to 5, back onto 7. Kind of like that, right? From the beginning. And repeat. And then we're into this. We're going to move into this position of the D minor. We're going to grab 10 onto 12 of the G, and then roll it up to 12 of the D and choke it off. Kind of like that, right? And then we're into this repeating lick. So we're bending the 12 of the G, grabbing the 13 of the B with our pinky. You're going to repeat that about 8 times. And then the final time, little double hit. and then drop into that. Just double stops, 10 on the 12, roll it up to 12 of the D, down to 10 of the G, back to 12 of the D. Kind of like that, right? Immediately into this. So we're at a little bar here on the 10s, B and high E. We're doing little pull-offs from 13 off to 10, then 15 off to 10, pedaling back to the 10 of the B string, and you're going to repeat that twice. And then you go back to that 13 again, and then off to 12 to finish up. And then into 2 unison bends, kind of like that. And then you jump up to 15 of the high E and give it a full step bend. So, up to that point. Repeat. Right, now we're on the 15 of the high E, big full step bend. We're going to move up to 15 of the B and do that and repeat twice. So 15 of the B, step and a half bend, pick it a bunch of times at the top. Well, 4 times actually, and repeat twice. And then you kind of double time it. 4 more times, right? And then off to 13, back on to 15. And right at the end of the solo, that little lick right there, 19 of the G, 20 off to 18 of the B, kind of like that. And then you're going to do 2 full step bends with your index, back to the natural note, 19 off to 17, back onto 19 of the G. And then we finish with this. Just 19 of the G, 18 on the 20 of the B. Then you're going to go into full step bends on that 20 of the B, grabbing the 20 of the high E over and over again. Kind of like that, right? As it's fading out. And that is the outro solo. So let's take it from the top nice and slow, and then we'll be done. Repeat. Move it up. 4, 5, 6, 7. Double time. Move it up. Right, and then it fades out. And there you go. That is how you play the solo. That is how you play the entire track to Turn to Stone by Joe Walsh. Certainly hope you enjoyed that, found it helpful. If you did, please hit that like button right down there. Maybe drop me a subscribe if you haven't done that already, as that would be very kind. Hope you're well out there in your little guitar corner of the world, wherever that may find you, and we will see you next time. Cheers.